Hello and welcome to Talkin' Golf Science on this Friday, July 16. I'm Rod Murray. Thanks for tuning in. If you've considered buying new golf clubs recently, you'll be well aware of just what a crowded marketplace it is. In fact, trying to decide on a new set of irons can be an overwhelming process. There's a seemingly endless number of options, from the major manufacturers right through to the component makers and lesser-known brands. But most of the clubs on offer share a common trait. The irons start at the long end and progressively work down to the shorter end. And that's the way golf has been for a very long time. But today's guest is a club maker who offers something truly unique. David Lake founded One Iron Golf in the 1990s with a concept that is as simple as it is confronting to anyone who's been around the game for more than a few minutes. You see, David's sets of irons are all exactly the same length. The only difference between his 3-iron and lob wedge is the loft on the club head, and it's a system he reckons is the only sensible way to play the game. David Lake, welcome to Talkin' Golf.
Well, thank you, Rod.
Not at all, David. I am absolutely intrigued by this notion. I have, over the years, from time to time, sort of seen the concept spoken about, a set of golf clubs that are all exactly the same length. You actually do it. You make and sell these sets of golf clubs. Tell us firstly a little bit about your background and how you came to this idea.
Well, it's like everybody else. I've had a passion for golf since I was a little kid. I began in custom golf club building, more years ago than I care to mention. About 15 to 18 years ago, I just started playing around with the idea of single-length clubs. And it just came naturally, just like it does to anybody. Obviously, you have a favorite iron. Everybody does. It's the one you feel most comfortable with. You have 100% confidence. And I said, gee, why aren't all my clubs like this? So I experimented for probably 4 or 5 years until I came up where balance was right, weight was right, so on and so forth. And I found the performance level to be extraordinarily higher than a conventional set of golf clubs.
Are you a PGA professional, David, or you were a club builder but not a PGA professional?
No, I'm not a PGA professional. I'm just
you're one of us. You're one of us, David.
Exactly. I mean, I got into it because I wanted to build my own sets, learn a little more about golf equipment, and then I started doing it professionally. And so that's how I got started in all this. Obviously, as a club building professional, what's true, I had the equipment and the knowledge and so on and so forth to be able to actually pull off a set of single-length clubs because they are quite a bit different than the conventional types of clubs.
Okay, we'll get into some of the technicalities shortly, but what sort of handicap range are you playing? Are you a sort of a regular standard kind of golfer, double digits, low single digits?
Well, at the time I started with the single-length idea, and like I say, this is 15 to 18 years ago, at that point in time I played off about a 20, 22 handicap. Right now I play off about a 10. And to be honest with you, I may play 3 rounds of golf a year if I'm lucky.
Like everybody else in the golf industry, David, we get into it because we love it and never get to pick up the clubs again.
Exactly.
It's an all too common story. Okay, what were some of the tricky things about it? Because obviously if you muck around with the length of clubs, you change a bunch of the characteristics and properties, don't you? You said it took about 4 or 5 years to get it right with the balance and whatnot. What were some of the technical difficulties with coming up with a full set of clubs, different lofted irons, but a matching set?
Well, the first problem is weight. Obviously, and most golfers don't realize it, the club heads are progressively weighted in typically 7-gram increments from the 3-iron all the way down through the wedges. So, for instance, your 4-iron weighs 7 grams more than your 3-iron, just the club head. Now, if you're going to build a set of clubs, the idea is to make them identical. In my case, for my height and so on and so forth, my 9-iron was my club. It was obviously my favorite. So I wanted to make every club in the bag match that. Well, the first thing, obviously, I have to adjust the weights of every club head. And to do it properly, that, meant drilling holes into the sole of the club, adding, brass plugs, things like this, just to get the weights of all the club heads correct. so they're all the same. The second difficulty was obviously lie angle of the club head. All the club heads, they have varying lie angles. And you have to bend those all to match this 9-iron club length I was building to. Now, here, the tricky part is, generally speaking, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to adjust a lie angle or a loft angle over 2 degrees in any direction. When you're building a set like this, you have to adjust them more than obviously 2 degrees. So that was a very tricky part, but then again, I had the equipment to do it. From that point in time, it was just deciding on the type of shaft flex I wanted, so on and so forth. And that's how I came up with it. I will tell you this, it is almost impossible to take a set of conventional club heads, whether they be components that you buy or if you have a set laying around at home, and trying to actually make a set of single-length clubs. There's obviously other difficulties I couldn't account for when I was in my testing stages, and one was the amount of offset. In a conventional set of irons, they all have a different amount of offset, different amount of balance angle. Well, those are things you can't adjust. But, at least I couldn't when I was trying to create this kind of a prototype set. And I could never overcome that until I actually came up with my design and had my club heads cast for me by a foundry.
I was going to say, the obvious problem you run into is working with existing sets, as you say, the technical, you can't stress the steel to the point where you can change the loft angles and the lie angles by more than 2 degrees. So you immediately run into a problem where you need to have your own club heads, don't you, made specifically for this purpose.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. David, as I said, I find the concept intriguing, but I would imagine many people like me, and I'll be honest, your initial reaction as a golfer is skepticism. It sounds crazy because we have all grown up with a set of golf clubs that progressively get shorter from the long irons down to the short irons. What sort of response did you get from people when you first started to talk about this idea and show people your set of clubs?
Yeah, it's just as you mentioned. It's complete skepticism. And the immediate reaction is, well, this is, you're trying to sell some snake oil here. It's just some golfing gimmick type of thing. But then when you actually get into it and get into the explanation and so forth, and the theory, the concepts, the whole works, all of a sudden people realize, wait a second, this is the real deal. It makes sense. And of course, we're not the first company to do this. Tommy Armour came out with a set of single-length clubs back in the, I guess, was late 80s, early 90s, called the EQLs. A good set of clubs and so forth. Now, it was funny about it, I was not aware of that at all until after I had actually started in business producing these. I happened to run across that. But there were a number of companies in the past, a number of patents out there on single-length clubs. I did more research on the subject. I had a friend of mine who, his grandfather had been a club designer for McGregor Golf Company back in the 20s and 30s. Yeah, in the old days. And, well, it was just about the time that they were moving from hickory-shafted clubs into steel-shafted clubs. He told me that all clubs, prior to the advent of the steel-shafted club, all those clubs were made to single length within their groupings. In other words, you had your irons. They were all the same length. You had your fairway type of wood grouping. Those were all the same length within the groups, okay?
Okay.
And he said what happened was that you'd go in back in those old days, the only place you could get a set of golf clubs, you had to get them custom built for you at, pro shop on a golf course. So you had to be a member of a club, so on and so forth. They had to fine-tune these hickory shafts and so on, but they built them all single length. Now, at the time, that's where golf got the nickname as a rich man's game, because obviously that's a very costly procedure. Well, here the steel shaft was invented, I think it was around 1910. I think it was finally adopted in 1926. Well, with the advent of steel shaft, now you didn't have all this fine-tuning of hickory shafts. I mean, you could mass-produce these, a million of them a day. And so McGregor Golf, I think it was Spalding, all the major Sears, all the major companies came in and said, you know what, this would be great. We can bring golf to the masses and to produce golf clubs very cheap with these steel shafts. We can take them off an assembly line. So they started doing that. However, there was a problem. And the problem was he couldn't custom fit the person. There was no way to custom fit if you're going to, in a mass production, model. So a manufacturing decision was made. Well, you know what? If we just made all the clubs half-inch different length, build them in incremental half-inch increments, throughout a set, adjusted the lie angles on these, since we had varying lie angles to correspond with these additional club lengths, said no matter who buys the set of clubs, there's going to be one or two in there that's going to come close to fitting that person. And this is how it's been ever since. Now, admittedly, I got this story from a friend of mine who got it from his father and so forth. So you're getting it, third hand, okay? Or maybe I got it third hand. The point is, it is so, the logic of that made so much sense to me that I said it has to be true. And then on top of that, in all my years in designing golf clubs, building golf clubs, I've obviously researched and read every book on the subject. I have never found anything anywhere that explains why, in fact, there is a half-inch incremental length between clubs within a set. Never have I heard an explanation, which, in my opinion, lends credence to my friend's story. So that's kind of where it came from.
Doesn't it, the immediate answer from, your traditional golfer like me would be, obviously the longer the shaft, the more distance you can generate. Hence, longer irons have longer shafts and shorter irons have shorter shafts. Is that not based in some sort of science?
No. You get the armchair physicist out there. He says, well, no, wait a second. The radial arm length, you increase that, you're going to increase the swing speed and so on and so forth. The problem there is physics doesn't apply when you add the human element. And let me give you an example. I would assume that you have a favorite iron in your set. Is that correct?
I do, yes.
Okay. Like I say, everybody does. And let me qualify this. If sometimes you say, well, if you only had one iron, what would you play it with? Well, the guy might pick this iron because he figures, well, let's see, I've got these distances to cover in around a golf and so on and so forth. But if you go up to him and say, you know what, if you had to put your life on the line and you had to drop shots on a pin, regardless of the distance, but you could pick one iron out of the bag, which iron would that be? He'll generally pick out a different iron. Okay, in my case, I'm 5'9". In my case, it was always a 9-iron club length. Okay, and 9-iron was perfect for me. What's true is this. When you've got your favorite iron in your hand, and we've tested this with literally hundreds of golfers, and this is 12 years ago, including some professional golfers. When you've got your favorite iron in your hand, you're going to generate your maximum amount of swing speed within your iron set. And there's a reason for that. Your confidence level is through the roof when you've got that favorite iron in your hand. You know you're going to hit a perfect shot. You know it. So what's true? You go after each shot. Now, if you start leaving that comfort zone, say you move up to your 7-iron, what's true? Your confidence level has gone down a little bit. Once your confidence level starts going down, you unconsciously will not swing as hard. You're going to try to make ball contact. You get up to your 5-iron, your confidence level has gone down more. What's true? You're not going to swing as hard. So you will find that your highest swing speed is going to be within the iron grouping, is going to be with whatever your favorite club is. Now, admittedly, if you just went out and started freewheeling a club in the air, the longer the club, you'll have a higher swing speed. But if you're actually hitting shots, hitting balls to a target, believe me, your highest swing speed is always going to be with your favorite. And it works the other way, too. If you go shorter club lengths, say into your wedges, you'll find that your swing speed starts going down. Not because your wedges are typically shorter, it's because your confidence level goes down. It's pretty amazing when you get right down to it.
Interesting concept, and as you say, golf always comes down to the mental in the end, doesn't it? And the more it makes sense that the more confident you are, the better the swing you're going to make. So whenever you have that favourite club in hand, that your swing would be better. David, you said there that your initial set that you made for yourself was built around your 9-iron because it was your favourite club. What about for everybody else? If, for example, my favourite club is the 4-iron and I wanted to get a set of single-length clubs, would they be built around my 4-iron length, or is there some other way that you determine what the length of the clubs will be?
Well, we base it on your wrist to floor measurement. And basically, this was part of, there again, my development of this, many years ago. What I tried to find, what I did find, was the optimal swing posture and swing plane to produce your highest level of control and power with an iron, for instance. And this isn't just based on golfing. For instance, I've been a bodybuilder for 40 years. I have an in-depth knowledge of physiology. And what's true, whenever your body wants to perform a function, if left to its own devices, it will find its most efficient way to do that. And when we're talking about efficient, we're talking about the most power, the most control that you could possibly attain in order, for your body to produce that function. Well, in golf, it's hitting the ball off the ground with a stick. That's all it is. And there's a certain position your body wants to be in. It's just based upon your muscle, tendon, joint functions, skeletal functions, so on and so forth. There's a certain posture, a certain swing plane, and so forth that your body wants to produce in order to hit a ball off the ground with a stick. Now, I know your next question will be, wait a second, people come in all shapes and sizes. That's true. But mechanically speaking, there's no difference between a person that's 5'5" and a person that's 7'5" from a mechanical perspective. For instance, you go to a health spa. You've got these machines designed to effectively, optimally work any muscle in your body. The only adjustment necessary on those machines is to adjust for the length of your legs or the length of your arms or something like this. But the basic mechanics of that machine remain the same for everybody, just because of the fact that regardless of your size or shape, unless you have a severe handicap, mechanically everybody's the same. So what's true? There is an ideal swing posture and swing plane that every golfer can attain. Now here's what's really interesting. If you take a bunch of films of professional golfers and you overlap them on top of each other, the best golfers in the world, you find that they are almost identical. Now, there are some exceptions, like a Lee Trevino, for instance, or maybe a Jim Furyk. But other than just one or two odd exceptions, these people are almost identical in their swings, their swing planes, and so forth. And basically, that's what I designed our clubs around, to actually, let me put it this way. Typically, if you go in to get custom fitted, what's the guy going to do? And I mean the best custom fitter in the world. He's going to try to fit golf clubs to the swing that you walked in that door with, all right? I mean, that's his job. And he will do a very good job of that. Perfect job. Our idea is the fact that nobody has ever played with clubs that fit them. And they have, in fact, played with a set of clubs where each club was different, so they've developed less than optimal swings. They might have their perfect swing, with their favorite iron, so forth, but all the other ones kind of confuse the issue. So they go in to get fitted like this, and based on the inefficient swing that they've developed over the years, and they end up with a brand new set of clubs that still don't fit them. You see what I'm getting at? In other words, they're just building on the inefficient swing. We build our clubs specifically to force the golfer into the ideal swing posture and swing plane. And now, based on that, we go with their wrist floor measurement. There's a formula that I developed years ago that translates the wrist to floor measurement, while you're standing at attention, to your wrist to ground distance at impact, assuming there again the ideal swing posture and ideal swing plane. Now, once we have that wrist to ground, we've translated it into the wrist to ground distance at impact with these ideals. Then basically your wrists, the club head, and the point straight down from your wrist forms a right triangle. And it's just a matter of trigonometry to solve for the hypotenuse or the actual club length. That was kind of modified. Obviously, we factor in shaft deflection, so on and so forth. But the point is, across the board, in 12 years of business, it comes out almost exact every time. Unless we have somebody with a handicap of some sort, you get a club that actually puts you in the body or in the position that your body wants to be in to hit that ball off the ground with a stick.
So the 5'5" golfer and the 7'5" golfer would have two different lengths of club, but that club would force them into the same position. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And the way we do that, all of our irons, we've found that a 63.5-degree club head lie angle for the irons is ideal. Now, admittedly, that's 63.5-degree static lie angle. Obviously, when you swing a golf club, you take the dynamic of the club, that changes. But the point is, from a starting point, that's just ideal. And then we adjust the club length in order to fit that particular lie angle to the individual golfer. So you're right. If you have a person that's 5'5", he gets a set of irons from us. They might be the club length of a conventional gap wedge. There again, you get the person that comes in, and these 6'5", he might get clubs that are the length of a conventional 3-iron.
Okay. I'm still just, I have a picture in my mind of a guy standing with a 3-iron in hand that's the length of a gap wedge. It's an odd picture. Are people, when they do come to this and try it, does it take some getting used to? I would imagine it'd be quite confronting. I can't imagine picking up a 3 or a 4-iron that was the same length as a 9-iron. It would just feel extremely weird.
No, there again, it gets back to what you brought up before. It's a mental thing, and that's true. Let's put it this way: if you called me up right now and you said, build me this set of clubs, here's my rest of floor measurement and so forth, we'd send you that set of clubs, and immediately you'd pick them up, and you'd say, you know what, these are just like my favorite. This is a very comfortable position to be in, so on and so forth. And let's say that you got your clubs and they were all the length of a conventional 7-iron. Let's just say that. Mm-hmm. Well, what's true? You go to the range, and you're out there hitting the clubs, and everything's fine, and you're supposed to use your 7-iron swing with every club in the bag. Mm-hmm. Okay? But what's true? You pick one of our irons that has a 3 written on the bottom. Mm-hmm. Believe me, you will not put your 7-iron swing on that.
Of course not.
And you pick up a club that has, LW written on the bottom. You're not going to put your 7-iron swing on that. And it's just strictly mental. So, yes, you're right. It takes you 2 or 3 trips to the range just to get past that mental portion, because this has been ingrained, for years of you playing golf, for instance. See, once you get past that mental portion, it's simple. But it does take 2 or 3 trips. Trust me, we don't sell a magic pill here. It's not a magic pill. You're not going to buy our clubs and drop 10 strokes tomorrow. It's not going to happen. But if you're willing to spend some time at the range with these, get used to the clubs, get used to the mental part of it, it becomes a pretty stunning difference.
What do you find are the results? What is the feedback that you get? I mean, obviously people aren't going to, as you say, immediately drop 10 shots off their game. But what are the advantages? Do you just develop a more consistent game as far as ball flight and straightness of hits? What's the advantage at the end of it all for those who stick with it?
Oh, well, think about this. If I am on the 18th fairway and I'm making my approach shot, regardless of which iron I pull out of my bag, I've already practiced that shot 30 times that day, because every time I pulled an iron out of that bag, I've made the exact same swing with the exact same club. It just happened to have a different loft angle. What you got to remember, in our sets of clubs, they are identical. You take our 3-iron, you take our lob wedge. They are identical in every respect except for that loft angle. I mean, they have the same amount of offset, same bounce angle, same weight, same shaft flex, same absolutely everything. Your consistency goes up so high. Instead of trying to master 12 different swings, you just master one. And that swing that you're mastering is the one that your body wants to make in the first place. So it becomes automatic. Every time you swing a club, that one swing becomes more ingrained, more ingrained, more ingrained. So right off the bat, what happens, our average customer, they will notice, over the first couple weeks while they're getting used to the clubs and so forth, they will notice that their distance start increasing across the board with every club in the bag.
Increasing?
Oh, absolutely. Number one, because they're ingraining that swing every time they swing a club. And when you get over, let's assume, like in my case, my favorite iron was my 9-iron. When it gets to the point that my favorite iron is also my 3-iron now, I'm gonna nail that thing. I want 9 out of 10 times. I'm gonna drop it on a dime out there. And when you get that kind of confidence, automatically your power starts going up. Plus the fact that if you're only using one swing, every club is identical, you're going to be hitting the sweet spot on that club face very consistently. And as you probably know, you miss a sweet spot on the club face by, say, a quarter of an inch either way. And what's true? You're going to lose distance. You're going to have an off-flight shot somewhere off to the left or right, off into the paw patch. So your consistency goes way up. So all across the board, power, control, consistency, everything improves. If that improves, your game's going to improve.
The control, pardon me, the control element, I can understand. That makes intuitive sense that if you're swinging the same club but just with different lofts, then as long as you can get it on the sweet spot, it's going to be better. But if you took your 9-iron length 3-iron and your old 3-iron and you hit them both perfectly, which occasionally we all stumble across the perfect shot even with a long iron, surely your old longer 3-iron must go further than your current one.
Well, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there again, it goes back to what I was saying before. I don't care how good of a long iron player you are. Now, let me back up. If you're 6'5", your favorite club might be your 3-iron. Okay? So we're not talking about that guy. We're talking about somebody whose favorite club, like in my case, is their 9-iron. Well, I pick up my 3-iron, which is my 9-iron length. There again, my confidence level is through the roof with this club because I know I'm going to hit it well. I know I'm going to hit it well, my power automatically goes up. Whereas before, and to give you an example, when I played conventional clubs, I was considered an exceptional long iron player. And what that means is, for us average golfers, that means about 6 out of 10 times I could nail the ball. The other 4 times, who knows how that shot was going to end up. Now, what's true? With my 9-iron length 3-iron, I not only have increased my yardage with my 3-iron by 10 yards, but 9 out of 10 times I'll drop that thing on a dime, and that 10th shot will be acceptable. There is a huge, huge difference. People just get so wrapped up in club length. I mean, if you look down at your little fingernail and note the width of your little fingernail, that's about a ½ inch, and that's the difference in club length between every iron in your set. Now, anybody in the world that tells me that increasing their club length by the width of my fingernail is going to make me hit the ball farther, it's ridiculous. Now, if you increase the length of your club by a foot, and if in fact you could hit the ball with that club, you might notice some increase in distance. I don't think the average golfer is going to have much luck going that way.
but your old 3-iron was much more than a fingernail width different to your old 9-iron.
Oh yeah, it was probably about a 2.5 inch, 3 inch difference.
So your new 3-iron has got a 2.5 to 3 inch difference. But you say even on those perfectly struck shots with either club, the shorter 3-iron will still go the same distance as the perfectly struck longer 3-iron.
Well, yeah. What you've got to bear in mind is this: we're talking about inches here. Okay, now the average go, well, let's see, an inch this way, a couple inches this way. It's going to make a huge difference. You've got to take this into perspective. When you talk about the radial length of your golf swing, the radial arm length, you're not talking the club length. You're talking from your shoulder all the way down to the club head. So let's assume that your 7-iron, you have a 7-iron right now, and it's 37 inches long. And let's assume that your arm length from wrist up to the top of your shoulder is, say, another 37 inches. Okay, well, now you've got, what does that come up to, 74 inches?
74 inches, yeah.
Okay, 74 inches. So what's true? If I increase or decrease that club length by, say, 1 inch, I've either increased or decreased that radial arm length by 1 over 74. If I increase it either way by 2 inches, I've only changed my radial arm length by, 1 over whatever that comes up to, 27th, 1 over 27. Now, those kind of differences in the radial arm length are not going to change your swing speed at all. I mean, let's put it this way. They might change your swing speed. You'll never be able to measure it. And the only way that you would be able to measure that is if you were just freewheeling the club in the air. If you were actually hitting shots off the ground to a target. Believe me, the longer that club, the less confidence, the less power that you will apply to that swing. So you take all those things into consideration, and you're absolutely. I pick up my 9-iron. My confidence is through the roof. Like I say, I only play about 3 times a year, but it's like riding a bike. If all my clubs are the same, I've only got one swing, and so it is so ingrained, deeply ingrained, that swing, that I can go out cold to hit a 3-iron off the par 3 on the first hole and nail it. You're right. I'm going to get the distance, if not greater distance. But you're right also, the control that you get with these clubs is, that is immediate. You get an immediate increase in your accuracy.
What about the notion that golf is supposed to be a game where, how can I put this? Lots and lots of people have spent lots and lots of time and money trying to make this game easier. Isn't it supposed to be difficult, and that's the challenge of it? Shouldn't the golfer be trying to improve their 3-iron swing so they can hit their 3-iron better rather than looking for a 3-iron that makes it easier for them to hit the 3-iron? Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Well, if that's for the case, then we might say, well, when you go out there to play golf, you have to wear hobnail boots. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You already have clubs that are your favorite club length. There's already one in your set. Why not have all of them the same way? There's how can I put this? That would be like as part of the rough on a golf course. Instead of having sand traps, you have Indians attacking you when you're going down the fairway.
Sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it, Dave?
Well, sometimes I wish it would happen so I could tear up my scorecard and leave.
That's right.
But no, I mean, it's one of those types of things. No, everybody wants to improve their game. And if you can improve it through equipment, that's fine. And like I said, we're not selling we don't have a magic pill. Single-length golf clubs are not a magic pill. Believe me, you still have to go out and practice if you want to improve your game, and you have to practice your swing and so forth. You cannot buy a game. Nobody can sell you any clubs that are gone. There's no magic pill out there. You still have to work at it. And so, no, this doesn't make it easier from that perspective. It just makes it a lot more consistent. Your game is much, much more consistent. And to just give you an example, it would be like for each different length putt, you had a different length putter. It just doesn't make sense. It absolutely doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to make the game easier, so to speak. I was trying to make it better.
Okay. No, that makes sense. The putting analogy makes some sense to me. Two areas I want to touch on very quickly, David. That's the irons, obviously, and that's, what you play most of your shots with. What about woods? Do you make woods? I think you do, according to your website. You make woods. Are they the same length as the irons? Are they longer? How does that work? When we get
no, we have fairway woods, a 3, 5, and a 7 wood, and we also carry a titanium driver. Now, you're right. The irons, in each grouping, you want the clubs to be the same length. Right. And when I say grouping, we're talking about a functionally designed grouping. In other words, irons are designed to hit the ball on the downward blow, pinch the ball, and, shoot up. That's the design function of an iron. A fairway wood, on the other hand, is designed to sweep the ball from the turf. You don't come down into it, you actually sweep the ball. When you're sweeping the ball, which is, there again, a different design function, you need a flatter swing plane to accomplish that sweeping motion. So our fairway woods are a little longer than our irons to accommodate that. Now our driver, again, the design function is to sweep the ball, but it's designed to sweep a ball that's teed up a couple inches in the air. What's true, a little flatter swing plane is required, so consequently a little longer club length. So to give you an example, for instance, in my position, my clubs are my irons are the length of a conventional 9-iron. All of my fairway woods are the length of a conventional 7 wood, roughly, depending on the manufacturer. And my driver is about 2 to 3 inches shorter than a typical driver you will find on the market. So, no, there are different lengths within the groupings, but each grouping has the same length. Like I said, our fairway woods are identical. Same weight, same flex, everything's identical, but they are, in fact, a longer club length than the irons.
Sounds like your driver is more like the sort of drivers we used to use 10 years ago, because the drivers that you get these days tend to be 2 to 3 inches longer than they ever were in the past, don't they, with the titanium
it's a joke.
Graphite shaft. They're 45-inch drivers that really nobody could control.
That's absolutely correct. They're an absolute joke. As a matter of fact, if memory serves, Tiger Woods, when first got out on tour, and for quite a while, he was playing a steel-shafted driver. It was like 43 3/4 inches. Correct. And he's a fairly tall fellow. He's taller than me, put it that way. But most professional golfers, they don't go out with these 45 and 46-inch labor swords. They're a little more realistic.
We had Tom Wishin on the show a few months ago now, and he extolled quite extensively on the ludicrousness of amateur golfers trying to hit 45 and 46-inch drivers when really good players couldn't control them. What hope have the rest of us got? And that was a very
that's true.
That's
true. No, Tom's an expert.
He's a genius, isn't he? A wonderful and very open man, too. I really like the way Tom goes about his business. The second area I wanted to talk to you about, let's clarify the woods. What about the short game? It just strikes me while we're talking that around the greens we play all sorts of different shots, and from time to time you chip with your 7-iron or your 5-iron as opposed to your sand wedge or your lob wedge or your pitching wedge or whatever. Are there any benefits in that way with all clubs being the same length? I mean, that to me makes a lot of sense. You want to hit a lower shot with, say, a 5-iron, but it's the same length as your wedge which you normally chip with. You would think that must have some benefits to it.
Well, first of all, what I'm about to say is completely contrary to anything that's ever been written on the short game.
Oh, good.
Completely contrary. And just there again, let me give you my own example, but this is what I advocate. Number one, when I'm within 90 yards to pin, this isn't chipping, but for all pitch shots, things like that, within 90 yards of the pin, the only club I ever pull out of my bag is my lob wedge. I never choke down on any club for any shot, unless, there again, you're on a severe side hill lie or something, out of the ordinary. But for a shorter range shot, I never choke down on the club. I just don't swing as hard. But there's an advantage there. If you use only one club, within your range, my range, with a full swing on a lob wedge is 90 yards. I can drop it on a dime. But since I only use a lob wedge within that 90 yards, if I'm 40 yards out, 50 yards out, 30 yards out, whatever, try to guess what? I know exactly what's going to happen when I hit the ball. Now, if all of a sudden I pick up, well, let's see, I'll try a little pitching wedge shot here, or this shot here, use this club here, I don't know what's going to happen. But if I use the same club, and that's the only club I use for that shot, I know exactly what's going to happen. My distance is, let's put it this way, you can become a magician if you pick out one club to use for that range. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what club it is, if you use it exclusively, you can become a magician. You can drop the ball on a dime. As far as chipping the ball, the only club I ever use for chipping anymore is my 9-iron, period. I don't care if if I'm 2 inches off the green. I don't care if I'm 3 foot off the green. I don't care if it has to roll 10 yards. It makes no difference. I use my 9-iron. There again, I know what's going to happen on that shot. Now, you might say, no, wait a second. You're a few inches off the green. You've got 20 feet to the pin. Oh, you want to get that ball rolling quickly. And my advice is, no, I don't. As far as I know, there's no such thing as break in the air. So I hit the ball till I know where it hits. It's going to take a couple bounces and stops. It's going to be right there beside the pin. But the point is, it's going to go where I aim it. If I hit it on the green, then maybe Tiger Woods can make those perfect chip shots, but I certainly can't. I can't read the break like him, but there's no break in the air. But there again, it comes to consistency. When I go up and make a chip shot, I know how hard to hit it. I know what's going to happen when the ball leaves the glove face. I know how far it's going to roll, so on and so forth. So that's what I advocate. There again, on my chip shots, I do not choke down on the club at all. And I think people that do are making a huge, huge mistake. Personally, for consistency's sake, if I'm on the golf course and I have a club in my hand, my address position never changes for any shot.
Interesting. There's a few schools of thought about the short game, and that yours is one of them, where you master one club. And there's other schools of thought as well, obviously.
Well, sure. They're probably all valid, but this just makes common sense to me.
if you took 3 of the best players in the world and put them all in the same spot next to a green, you'd probably find they'd play 3 different shots and they'd all end up somewhere near the flag, and that's...
Well, that's true.
That's how golf works. What you've been at this about 12 to 15 years, I think you said, David.
Yeah. I
would imagine, as a business, this must be a hard grind, because you would spend most of your time trying to convince people like me that this is a good idea. How's it gone for you in that way?
Actually, it's not a hard thing to do. For instance, we sell golf clubs all over the world. We're an internet-based golf company, so our website, which is some 30 pages long, tons of information, gets out there for anybody in the world to see. So what will happen is, and I think this is true, and I don't know, maybe you've thought about this in the past, but I think at some point in time, people have always said, gee, I wish all my clubs were the same length as this iron. The thought has crossed their mind. But they say, why are they all different lengths? They come to my website, and all of a sudden they say, wait a second. And they can find a complete explanation, so on and so forth. So by the time they email me, and I probably answer somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 emails a day, and I don't know, it's countless phone calls, once they call, they've they're already pretty convinced. I don't have a hard time, In other words, I don't try to sell anybody on this. That's like I say, I'm not selling a magic pill here or anything like that. And here's one thing I might note. We offer, new sets of clubs, a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's, if you don't want them, you beat them to death. You can go to a demo days. You can go into a golf store, and you can try this club and hit this ball into a net or do this and have the salesman standing behind you. Oh, yeah, great shot. You need a set of blah, blah, blah. That's wonderful. It doesn't tell you anything. No. My thinking has always been that, you know what, you need a set of clubs at your home course and at your convenience, and you need them for a full month and beat them to death to decide if, in fact, that's right for you. Now, if for any reason you don't like our clubs, you send them back, you get all your money back. Okay. It's not an in-store credit. It's not a restocking fee. You get your money back. Now, we're the only golf company in the history of this industry that I'm aware of that has ever offered anything like that.
I can't think of
typically, typically you can return a club if you've never hit it. But once you've played that club, it's yours.
That's right. You try it, you buy it. That's the standard golf mantra.
Yeah, it's basically the case. And, just in that case, like I say, I'm not out to sell anybody on this or anything else. And we do stand behind our guarantee, and we always have. So it's just something where if a golfer gives it a serious chance, he's going to see the improvement. He's going to see that, in fact, this is the way to go. But
have you had many come back, David, over the years?
Oh, about every 100 sets that we sell, we might get 2 returns.
Okay. Yeah. I imagine for some people it's just too confronting. Is it for everybody then, I suppose, is the next question. Could you give these two, let's use Tiger as an example. If you put a set of these clubs in Tiger's hands, would it just be too confronting for him? If he's got that good at the game with the equipment that we've always used, would it be too confronting for him to actually, play any better or at the same level with a set of same length clubs?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. Probably our most staunch advocates are the low handicappers. And these are guys that, obviously, they go out and work on their game, or else they wouldn't be low handicappers.
Correct.
And they appreciate the fact that if they could play an entire round of golf with their favorite iron and just use one swing, that extra degree of consistency that would give them will help them to eliminate those extra few strokes they're trying to get rid of. And so, like I say, they're our staunchest advocates. Okay. They get them and they just absolutely love them. But realistically, anybody who's willing to put in the time, and I'm talking, a few trips to the range just to get acclimated to it, it will help any golfer. I cannot give you any example of a golfer it would not help.
How long then before we see somebody playing the game professionally at the top level where we will see them on television, and it will be a talking point if it ever happens, playing a set of same length clubs, be they yours or from somewhere else?
Well, actually, that's already happened. First of all, let me say, you'll never see them on the PGA Tour, and a reason being...
You can't pay the way the other manufacturers pay.
No, the fact is I wouldn't do it. No. Let's face facts. The guys on the PGA Tour, they make, other than Tiger Woods, who wins all the tournaments, or, somebody right up there at the top, but everybody else, they make their living off endorsement contracts. And realistically, they will play croquet mallets at the dollar's rate. Mm-hmm. They don't play anything. What's amazing about it, what kills me, and what disgusts me about the whole situation, is the fact that when, say, for instance, somebody signs up to play Brand X, their only stipulation is their club has to say Brand X on it. Now, these clubs are not anything. They're nothing like the clubs you go in and buy. I mean, they'll be a completely different club head design. There was a professional golfer, this is probably 20 years ago on tour. There was a company that was trying to promote graphite shafts in their irons. And I forget, it seems to me the shaft was white. So anyway, they had this player out on tour. He was endorsing their products and so on and so forth. He was playing their graphite shafts. Played them for about a couple months during the summer. And all of a sudden it was found out that he was actually using steel shafts painted white. Wow. So this is basically what you're looking at. I mean, this is typical.
Oh, it's gone on. It's gone on for years. I mean, and I think.
Oh yeah. So first of all, I don't want to be part of that game at all. I will not pay anybody a penny to play our clubs.
Last thing, David, what's it going to cost me? I want to set of your clubs here in Australia. What's it going to set me back?
Oh, big bucks. Mm-hmm. Big bucks, Rod. Our clubs aren't cheap. Mm-hmm. if you, for instance, just a basic set, if you've got a 3-iron through a gap wedge, what's the 3-iron through a pitching wedge plus a gap wedge? Price of a new set, it costs you $759.
And you've sold quite a few sets in Australia, you mentioned to me when we spoke the other day.
Oh.
You've had some interest here?
Typically, and this has been going on for the past probably 2 years, we average probably 3 to 4 orders shipped to Australia every week.
Every week?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we sell a lot in Australia. New Zealand, we sell a lot there, too.
Oh, well, they're strange. I can understand that, but I thought Australians are quite normal. I wouldn't have thought you'd be getting that many, but there you go. That's interesting. And how does that rate against other sort of international markets? Obviously, the US would be your biggest. That's where you're based. But other international markets, Australia would be, I imagine, fairly high up the list for numbers sold then.
Yeah, now, I can't tell you a country where we haven't, sold golf clubs. I can't tell you a country, but the biggest ones, obviously, UK and Australia are about tied. We sell a lot in France, Germany, Switzerland. Just name about just any country we sold clubs there. Of course, we sell a lot in Canada as well. Now, there is one place where we have never sold a set of golf clubs.
Tanzania.
And that's right here in the U.S. We've never sold a set in Alaska.
Oh, really? No surprise.
But I don't think they play a lot of golf up there, Rod.
Maybe you should do a package deal with some orange golf balls. That might entice them.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can actually then play the game. David, fascinating to talk to you. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Some fascinating stuff there, I'm sure you'll agree, and you can check out the One Iron Golf website via the link on the Talkin' Golf homepage, and there is plenty of interesting reading there if you're that way inclined. Well, that's it for today's edition of Talkin' Golf. Thanks for tuning in. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. I'll be back next Tuesday with Talkin' Golf Roundup when we'll be reviewing the Open Championship currently underway at St Andrews. And judging by the scores at the end of round 1, we're in for a pretty thrilling event, especially if the weather turns as nasty as predicted. I'll be watching as much of that as I can stay awake for. I'm sure you'll be doing the same. And I look forward to your company back here on Tuesday to wrap up all the action then.